So it can't land on housing.
Okay, let's do it.
Free to play.
Free to play. Oh God. Well,
Should 14 be free to play?
and today we're here with the spicy topic, guys. Because of the news with Final Fantasy XVI, Chris and I sat down and talked about that. We actually ran that on as our Thursday post. So you're getting a lot of posts from us this week. Hopefully you've been enjoying them. We've really been enjoying making them. If you missed the 16 conversation, what kind of game it is, link is in the description. Now, before we dive into this topic, every time we seem to shout it out, you guys respond. Game Club, top link in the description. Honestly, we don't need you to watch. Just go click the link. We're less than 25 subscribers away from our 1K goal. So you guys have been incredible. We don't need you to watch, like I said. The second link after that is going to be for Ginger Gaming Radio Podcast. Only click that link if you want more Final Fantasy content in your life. If you don't, ignore everything I just said about gaming radio. Chris, free to play, man. Like, this is the conversation.
Free to play. Should it be free to play? Is the free trial going to Heaven's Word a sign of it going free to play? If we put a token in the game, is it free to play? I don't want to get too far off on the token thing, but like the whole concept of free to play, and especially in a game that does have microtransactions, for people that are constantly against microtransactions but play 14, Square Enix is not against microtransactions, not in the least. They have gotcha games on your phone that are ridiculously good about asking for your money regularly and extensively. We have a mount shop, glamour shop. They're very good at collecting much more than just a sub or a $60 purchase at the beginning of a game. Think about how many DLCs 15 got. Like they're every form of monetization, Square Enix is on board, all of them. Should it be free to play?
I want to jump in with my bias first, okay, because I'm going to set that context. But there's a bigger conversation that I think has not been had around this topic, and it's also that Final Fantasy XIV does not exist in a bubble. You know, it's not, self-contained. There are other games that are coming, and that's going to be where this goes from my perspective. But first and foremost, I love subscription-based games. I think it helps overall the community because essentially it says there's a fee to ride this ride, and if you're just a troll, if you're just somebody who's going to be like, you know what, I'm going to go make somebody's day worse because I'm having a bad day, typically you're going to gravitate to a game that has a very low barrier for entry.
Right.
And if anybody's asking me for an admission ticket and then somebody's over here saying, hey, you can kick me for free, if I'm a troll and I have nothing invested into the community, who cares if I get banned? Who cares about that experience? And I think the subscription fee protects the community from that experience, which overall I agree with. I think from the development costs, I think they're, and this is just my, this is coming from a part experience, but also a part assumption because I'm not the CFO of Square. That would be a whole big reveal and a twist. That would be epic. By the way, guys, been the CFO for years.
He also speaks Japanese. We've been waiting on the live translations just because.
But beyond that, like I look at the subscription fee, and I don't think it essentially covers it. Like the $15, like if you think of that as the base, it's been $15 for a decade plus. There has been no inflation, and thus we've seen microtransactions come in, but they look at it and say, there's just no way we can ask for $25. There's no way we can ask for more money in a subscription to really cover development costs. So I think the subscription fee doesn't cover all the development that we wish or thought it did, and thus we see the cash shop come in to help fund the EU data centers. We see these kind of options come in, and ultimately, and again, like I said, the real question comes down to is that as the whole market shifts, and this comes from Halo Infinite going from multiplayer free to play, like you also are competing against other games that aren't now asking for that money and are seeing insane success off the back end of microtransactions. And our rule has always been, if it's a great game, gamers actually really don't care about microtransactions. They say they do, but if the game is amazing, they will happily say, you know what? Thank you. This was great. Here's $20. I really enjoyed that skin because I trust the developer. I trust the publisher. The MTX relationship is a matter of trust. It's not a matter of principle in general. Like, there are definitely pockets of like never MTX, but I would say that those are, smaller groups. And that's my perspective. I know that was a big heck of a monologue. I think it's important to set that context. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I like subscription based games for exactly what you said. While we just had a video go live about gatekeeping, I want everybody to have access to the gate, and anybody that wants to go through it to be able to go through it. But when you go through it, I'd like you to have to put some skin in the game. I'd like you to have to turn over to them some a credit card number that they can use to make sure that they're not letting this person back in again later. A very clear mark where you've moved from trying this game to playing this game. So I love free trials. And I think free trials should be extensive. One of my issues with the free trial up until 2020 with both 14 and WoW, the two biggest MMOs in the space, is that they both did an incredibly poor job of representing what the game was. They got you to partial versions of the combat system. They got you to the worst of what dungeons can do, because they were the entry-level dungeons. They got you just barely touching anything narratively. They didn't really let you engage with other players, which I do agree with. They don't let you really get into the crafting and all of the other systems that surround the battle content as secondary things to do, and make you really feel that it's a theme park. And so because of that, you're kind of like, you're going into just this like kid area, and you're playing these really small versions of the rides, and then you're asked to pay the full price. And we have a lot of old rides that have earned their keep and are fully paid for. And so I love the idea of making the first couple expansions. It's content that many of us, it's so old that if it comes up in your roulette, you're like, I don't remember this boss. Like, just give that stuff away. So like, I would be fine with as much as maybe 2 expansions in the past. So right now I think Stormblood and Shadowbringers, if that's where they want to have that paid. And then as it moves forward, next time, toss Stormblood out. It's free. But that free to play group, that free trial group, I do agree there needs to be restrictions there to keep them from becoming the trolls, and to keep them from swaying markets, and things like that I really feel you need to be a member of the community. And that member, like you said, it's the same $15 that it was in the 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, early 2000s. I
guess so. I was just trying to think, like, it's
been 20 years.
Yeah, I first was not yet for me yet, but overall market wise it has, because Final Fantasy XI North American launch, that was my entry into MMORPGs.
Wasn't EverQuest $15?
I don't know. I would assume so, but again, I think
so.
I never played EverQuest, and that's actually something I really regret. I didn't know it at the time. Like, I was like, oh, everybody's talking about this EverQuest game. Anyway, long story short, I haven't played EverQuest. Final Fantasy XI, it's coming up on 20 years, which for me is like, holy crap, that's 2 decades.
I've been playing WoW since launch, and me and my brothers had to pool our allowances to come up with the $15, and it's the same $15.
Right. In fact, I actually run off a reduced subscription because I helped fund the development of ARR as a part of the legacy. Me and many other players, which is just awesome. Now, let's talk about fairness, though, and then this is kind of where this topic I think is important to me, because I'm not going to sit here and like spout off like this is the perfect solution. However, the group that I feel for is the group that did the free trial, bought ARR. They're like, oh, level 20, this is great, and now wait, there's a sub attached to it. I think that there needs to be some version of buy to play, and I actually agree with you. I think it should be expansion locked. I think that if you want to play this game and you want to pay for this game, like ARR Heaven's Word, like, the subscription fee in my mind would be perfect for Stormblood and Shadowbringers. As that becomes Shadowbringers and whatever, that's where the subscription fee is. That's where the game, like, that's where the community really is diving into it. Because I feel for the person who right now owns the game, and then all of a sudden they say, hey, by the way, free to play up to Heaven's Word, and they own ARR. They can't take advantage of that gameplay time. They can't log in to update their game for free. And that's where, when I look at like the shift, when I talk about shifts in markets, is that the player should be able to log into the game, update the game, They should, and 14 does a good job at bringing in like these free blocks of time. Like, hey, log in for the next week for free, right? Okay, cool. What's changed? I think essentially what's changed, like there is a mindset that once we get past all the trolls and trying to figure out like keeping them out, right? But to the player who's actively interested, what they do is they come to like a video that like we might make, and they are like, oh, okay, maybe I'll come jump in. But how awesome would it be to bypass us completely and just be able for them to log in and see their friends running around? Hey guys, like, is it worth me hitting that subscribe button? Is it worth me just like putting in the money so now I can jump back into the Stormblood or Shadow
current community stuff?
Yeah, so current community.
The market board is locked behind the sub.
Right.
I would be fine with certain aspects of Duty Finder being locked behind the sub. Mm-hmm. Certain would be by default because certain parts of Duty Finder are tied to current content.
Yeah.
I could see there being a huge difference there. I don't even care if they say, okay, you can do the leveling roulette, but you don't get the daily bonus. Like, whatever it is, like, obviously they have to have that value add to ask for your money, but letting you have a really strong taste as somebody who maybe you're playing another MMO and you're happy there, but the happiness is kind of starting to wear off and you just want to try this again and get a taste for it. Inviting you back to say, hey, if you want to take a break from that other game and come here for a bit, let me show you a touch of what we've done since you left.
Right. And I that's I think that the challenge within that. I think there's another group that kind of is adjacent to that, and it's a group that's like, let's talk about our military, like that gets deployed, and it's like maybe they have 10 hours a month to play. There's no way to justify $15 a month versus like only 10 hours to play, but there would be a neat, interesting kind of like,
that's a regional thing.
It's a regional thing because China has a kind of
you purchase hours.
Any
part of the world where land centers are still like a big part of the gaming culture. You purchase your computer access by the hour, you purchase your game access by the hour.
Right.
And so those marry up perfectly, as opposed to
the
vast majority of the United States view this as you buy a computer, it's in your house all the time. You pay for, maybe you borrow against it with a credit card, so you pay that monthly, you pay your electricity monthly, anything that's tied, we think of everything monthly. Netflix is monthly, everything is monthly subs, and if I want to get my value out of it, I should be able to just binge it for that month, that's a very American way of doing things, and so games line up with that.
It's perfect. Now the reason I bring them up is that I feel like they could actually actively fit into that non-sub, able to play the game and story, and then if they have that time, hey, I'm back home and I do have that time, let me pop in and play. And ultimately, when again, this kind of all ties into what is the market response. And when I look at it, when Yoshi-P says it's fine to take a break, like how awesome would it be to be like, you know what, like I lost my job, but I don't lose my community. And it's like, you've bought the game, you're not going to be able to do markets. You're not like, I think establishing the do's and the don'ts, like what do your subscription fee actually apply? Oh, guess what? Subscription fee is completely retained by your 2 retainers, meaning all that extra storage and stuff you're not going to have access to. But if you just want to run a roulette, if you just want to kind of pop in and do glamour and dress up and talk with your friends and
like $2 a day, like what are you thinking?
No, I'm thinking that's the part of that free model. No, not a daily pass. I'm saying
totally free still.
Well, still totally free, but obviously still not being able to do like the current expansion stuff, right?
Sure.
I'm just saying that I think that there is a value in that aspect. Gamers have flocked to Discord and other things because that the community has shifted out there. These games that have these walls mean if you're not paying your sub, like you kind of have that like, oh, you've been kicked out of the country club, right? Like, okay, I can't go and have lunch with my friends because guess what? Life has kicked me in the face and now I'm blocked out. So that's who I feel for when I say I love my sub. I think the game should remain subscription based. I just think there is a hybrid model that is it's a tightrope walk. It's a tightrope to walk because like, you know, how does this balance out? How do you make it fair and not punish those who are subscribing while at the same time not basically breaking up whole communities and free companies just because you need to take a step away from the game for whatever reason, be it like a financial reason or you just want to go play another game for a couple of months.
That's the advantage of these kind of system-wide subscriptions as we move more and more to where you would pay a subscription to a launcher. So, you might pay $15 for the single point of access, but eventually you might pay $20 or $25 for access to Square Enix Online. And Square Enix Online gives you access to all of the current DLC for 15, access to 11, access to
16.
14, and then it may give you discount codes for while you're a current person. You can go buy, you get $10 off of 16, and things like that to really encourage, you get $10 off of Octopath Traveler. You get all these things to really encourage you to kind of dive into their universe. Come try. We have a free Marvel Avengers weekend for our Square Enix Online. So and that way they can afford to ask for more than $15, and it still does that same thing, right? Because the goal in my mind isn't to try to see from just the subscription to see how much money they can get out of me. They can do that on the cash shop. They can do that on their mobile games. There's plenty of ways to tap my nostalgia and try to ask for dollars, but really just saying, hey, if you're really a Square Enix fan, come hop in, pay this big thing, and then any month you want to take a break from one of our games, that's totally fine. Take a break and play something else. That's really where I want to see it go. So I don't.
That's where I was hoping this conversation would go.
I want to see it move to, as long as you can prove you're a member of the community, you're welcome to come and go as you please.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that's actually my whole, the value add that I would love to see happening. We see that with EA Play, with Ubisoft, and it's and somebody might be feeling oh, just another subscription, right? That could be kind of...
Which is why they partner with Game Pass or whatever,
exactly.
Right? To not 100%. Be just another. They roll into something bigger. It's just a matter of time until Netflix aligns with one of these, right? Until there's some Steam pass that gives you access to all these games every month. And it's well, why would Steam do a pass in addition to their store? And it's oh, well, they're partnering with Netflix. And now for $20 a month, I have access to 20% of Steam for free and all of Netflix. And it's well, why would you not do that? And then you just feel dumb. And every month they're just changing that out.
I think especially though with Square Enix, because they have such a diverse properties. You bring up Marvel Avengers. I'm playing Marvel Avengers. I'm actually really enjoying Marvel Avengers. Marvel Avengers needs some work. But at the end of the day, there's services there. It's a game that they're adding more content to.
Wait, work doesn't tell me don't play.
Right.
So the nice thing about it being on your sub service is you're well, I'll just come back in 60 days.
Well, and it's they could always even add in other things, right? So it's a game that doesn't necessarily require it. Imagine, we've talked about this from a game design perspective. Imagine doing something in the Marvel Avengers and it unlocks a mount in 14. You can have crossover without having to okay, we fit 14 right into it. It's just you unlocked an achievement here, and this is where, and while I don't want to presume Square Enix is doing this, but when I hooked up Marvel Avengers, it hooked up to my Final Fantasy XIV account, it hooked up to my Xbox account, my PlayStation account, my Steam account, all of these things, in hopes that we'll see crossplay. Obviously, that's my hope for that game. But beyond crossplay, just for the fact that Square Enix knows who I am and where I'm in their ecosystem, I would happily pay a Square Enix membership subscription to have access both to games. 11 and 14 would be just one example where I would happily just pay one sub and then easily hop between the two, as opposed to every time I want to hop between the two, there is a transaction that happens. I'd rather have that happening automatically, and it's just a matter of A or B today. What do I feel like today? And then also bring back 11 to consoles. Wow. # let's see it happen.
But retail and classic is the bar. It's the reason. It's the justification. It's the proof of this working. We've all speculated, and WoW Classic and retail subs are up.
Yeah,
because
value.
They can have a bad patch cycle on one. Now, what they have done, I will say, and I think Square Enix would be just as responsible, is Blizzard has not. You would think with Activision pressure and all that, and we always talk about, they actually allow those patch cycles to remain independent of each other. They allow those maintenance to, because in my mind, my cynical mind is, if they know there's a bad patch coming down the pipe in retail, why would they not bring a patch forward in Classic and just roll it out to keep people happy? But they won't. They'll let patch days be the same day if they have to. They'll let the good content line up with the good content. They'll take them down at the same time for maintenance, which in my mind is no, don't do that. Keep people on your launcher, but they don't do that.
Yeah.
They actually let them run independent of each other, is at least how it feels to me and everything I've heard and seen. And I think 14 would do the same. So it's not going to affect the way 11 is run.
Right.
It's not going to affect the way the 14 is run, but there are going to be times where you individually are not a huge fan. Maybe the next patch of 14, 5.35 is all relic based, and you're like, I don't care if I have to go into Boja or not. I don't want anything to do with relic.
Right.
It expires next expansion. It's not for me. Okay, great. Have you tried 11?
Yeah. I think one thing that I would love to see though as a part of this, as my final thought on the whole thing is, I'd like to see a universal friends list so that when I log in, I could be like, hey, I'm on 11 or I'm on Avengers. Oh, Chris is playing 14 or Chris or Leland or Clink or like anybody in the community, Sparta. Like, let's all just jump
Xbox
in.
Live does that. Battle.net does
and just
that.
the fact that it's like
place with multiple games.
Well, and imagine if and again, when I think about this kind of mindset, that if we see this kind of like universal account mindset, then ultimately your community doesn't break up, and that kind of then goes back into whether you tap into 14 like for free. Like, my whole thing is that if I'm not playing this game, I'm still connected to my friends, and maybe they'll invite me back into whatever they're playing. Guys, this new crossover event at 14 is legit. We got to go farm it. Oh, okay.
Right.
Like, I wasn't aware of that because I was kind of like, blindsided by the fact that Kamala Khan's a fantastic character. It's like, all right, cool. Chris, you got any final thoughts before we spin that wheel?
No. I don't want it to be free to play, but I do want it to be a bigger thing. So make it part of something larger, and then it'll feel cheaper on its own, but more value add.
Yeah, more value. Yeah. Guys, let us know what you think in the comments below. Spin that wheel to find out what we're talking about on Tuesday. This has been a fun week. Let's see what it is. Is it spicy? The
new player experience.
Oh, baby.
How do we fix the new player experience? Was the 5.3 squish enough? It starts to get dangerously close to that skip potion conversation. Basically, how is it when new players come in, especially as we talk about 6.0, 7.0, 8.0, when there is somebody coming in and saying, I have to do all of this?
All right, guys, tune in on Tuesday where Chris and I debate and discuss the new player experience in Final Fantasy XIV. For Work to Game, my name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for watching, and we hope to see you in our next video. But until then, take care. This video is sponsored by me, Ginger Prime. Hopefully, you'll check out my podcast channel, Ginger Gaming Radio, which we have lots of guests, lots of great conversations, and even more highlights. Links are in the description below. Let me know what you think. Thanks.